The
Remember
afternoon
this
sun
date
filtered
well.
through the half-drawn
Today you
curtains of the
didn't
spacious
just
living
lose
room.
your mother, you
The
destroyed
scent of
your
lavender
future.
air freshener mixed with the faint aroma of roasted coffee beans, a scent that used to make the place feel like home. But today everything felt different. Cold, stiff, silent. 72-year-old Martin Hale sat in his favorite armchair, the same one he'd bought 40 years ago when he and his late wife Evelyn moved into this very house. Every groove in the wood, every scratch on the floor beneath it, carried memories of their laughter, their arguments, their life. Now even the clock's ticking sounded hostile. Across from him, his son David and David's wife Hannah whispered to each other in low tones at the kitchen doorway. Martin could hear fragments of their words: renovation, upstairs, garage conversion. The words cut deeper than they should have. He'd lived here all his life, and suddenly they were talking about renovating his home like it was a project, not a legacy. Hannah, poised and confident, was setting the table. Her movements were precise, deliberate, almost territorial. She'd moved in with David only 2 months ago, and already she was rearranging furniture, replacing curtains, and even changing the color of the walls. Martin didn't mind sharing. He'd agreed when David said, "Dad, it'll be good for you to have us around." He thought maybe this house would echo again with warmth and laughter. But lately, every room echoed only with correction, criticism, and control. As Martin rose to pour himself another cup of coffee, Hannah's voice sliced the air. "Mr. Hale, would you mind not leaving your mug on the counter? It stains the marble." "I just cleaned that." He froze mid-step. "It's just a mug, Hannah," he said, trying to keep his tone even. She smiled, polite, sharp, and condescending. "Yes, but I like keeping things tidy. I'm sure Evelyn liked that too, didn't she?" He stiffened at the mention of his wife. "Evelyn didn't mind a few stains," he replied quietly. "Well, I do," she said, her voice final. David entered then, arm around his wife, oblivious to the tension. "Everything okay here?" "Perfectly fine," Hannah said sweetly, leaning into him. "Just keeping things organized." Martin set the mug down gently and walked out to the porch, the one he built with his own hands. The boards creaked beneath him, then old but strong. Inside, laughter started again. But it wasn't his laughter anymore. It was theirs. The following week brought rain, the kind that drummed relentlessly against the windows, blurring the world into gray. Martin sat by the fireplace reading a book Evelyn had loved, when he heard Hannah's voice again, sharp, commanding. "Martin, I've told you before, please take off your shoes before walking into the living room." He looked down. Mud. Yes, he'd forgotten. The garden had been slippery and his knees ached, and he simply didn't think about it. "Sorry," he muttered, starting to untie them. But she didn't stop. "This isn't a farmhouse. We can't have dirt everywhere. You might be used to things a certain way, but this is our home now, and we—" He lifted his head, the word "our" hitting him like a slap. "Our home?" he asked, voice low. "Did I hear that right?" Hannah blinked, realizing what she'd said, but doubled down anyway. "Well, yes. David and I live here. We're a family, aren't we?" Martin rose from his chair, gripping his cane tightly. "This is my home. I built it with my hands, with my wife. I let you stay here because I thought we'd be a family, but don't you dare talk to me like I'm a guest." Her expression hardened. "You don't need to raise your voice. I'm just asking for respect in my house." That last phrase hung heavy in the air, a dagger disguised as civility. Before he could respond, David walked in from the garage, hearing the tail end of the conversation. "What's going on?" "Your father's upset because I asked him to take off his shoes," Hannah said quickly, her tone turning soft and victimized. "I didn't mean to upset him." Martin clenched his jaw. "She said this was her house," David frowned. "Dad, come on. You're overreacting. She just meant—" "I know what she meant," Martin snapped. "And you're letting her talk to me like this in my own house." "Dad," David sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Please, let's not do this. It's just words. But words have power, especially when they rewrite ownership, love, and legacy." Martin said nothing more. He just turned and walked to his room, the one that still smelled faintly of lavender, the one that used to feel like a sanctuary. He could hear Hannah whispering again, then David's voice tired and low saying, "Just give him time." But time was what he'd already given, years of it. Decades, and now he was being erased in his own home Sunday evening. Dinner. The table was set beautifully. Hannah always had a flair for presentation. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and salad. But even the golden light couldn't warm the coldness sitting between them. Martin sat quietly, eating slowly, trying not to disturb anyone. He'd spent the morning in the garden, his only refuge now, pruning the old rose bushes Evelyn planted. David was talking about his work. Hannah was scrolling through her phone. Family dinners used to be full of conversation. Now they were a performance of politeness. When Martin reached for the salt shaker, Hannah spoke without looking up. "Could you not put that near the tablecloth, please? It leaves little grains everywhere." He froze mid-motion. "Excuse me?" She finally looked at him. "I'm just asking you to be careful, that's all." Something inside him cracked. Quietly but irreparably. "You've been asking me to be careful since the day you moved in," he said evenly. "Careful where I sit, where I walk, what I touch. You've rearranged my furniture, thrown out my books, replaced my curtains." "I didn't throw anything," she interrupted sharply. "I simply redecorated. The old things were mine." His voice rose. "Everything here is mine. You treat me like a tenant." David slammed his fork down. "Dad, enough!" Martin looked at his son, disbelief and heartbreak in his eyes. "Enough? You're telling me to stop defending the home I built for you? For your future?" Hannah's voice trembled slightly, but she didn't back down. "You're making everyone uncomfortable, Martin. Maybe you should rest. You're clearly agitated." He turned toward her slowly. "Agitated? You move into my home, call it yours, and order me around like a guest, and I'm supposed to just sit quietly?" "Please stop shouting," she said, rising to her feet. That's when David stood too, chest heaving, eyes full of anger. "Dad," he snapped. "Don't argue with my wife in her house." The words hit like thunder. Silence followed. Even Hannah looked stunned. Martin's spoon clattered onto the plate. He stared at his son, the same boy he'd once carried on his shoulders, the same boy he'd taught to build, to plant, to respect. "In her house?" he whispered. "Did I hear that right?" David's anger faltered. "I didn't mean—" But Martin was already pushing his chair back. "No, you meant every word." He walked to the doorway, cane tapping against the hardwood floor, each step echoing like a countdown. He turned once, just once, and said quietly, "When a son forgets where he came from, he loses more than a home." Then he left the table, and the house in suddenly felt smaller for everyone inside it. 2 weeks passed. The house was quieter than ever. Martin had moved into a small apartment downtown near the park. The first few days were strange. Too many strangers, too much noise. But soon he found peace in the solitude. He tended to his little balcony garden, read in the morning light, and wrote letters to his late wife in an old notebook. He didn't call David, and David didn't call him. Back at the old house, however, things were not the same. Hannah noticed it first. The air felt heavy, the lights flickered sometimes, and the house creaked at night like it was sighing. David had trouble sleeping. Every time he passed his father's empty chair, he felt something twist in his chest. One evening, as rain poured outside, Hannah found him sitting there, staring at the armchair. "David?" she said softly. He didn't look up. "You know what I remember? When I was 8, Dad built this chair for Mom's birthday. He stayed up all night sanding it. He said every home should have something made by hand so it remembers love." Hannah sat beside him, guilt clouding her face. "I didn't mean to drive him away. I just wanted order," David sighed. "We both did, but we forgot what made this house home. It wasn't the walls or the decor. It was him." A tear slipped down his cheek. "I yelled at him. In his own house." The next morning, David went to see his father. He didn't call first. He just showed up, raincoat soaked, heart heavy. When Martin opened the door, he didn't look surprised. Just tired. "Dad," David began, voice trembling. "I came to say I'm sorry." Martin studied him quietly, then stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was small but warm. A pot of tea simmered on the stove. David looked around. "You made it cozy," Martin nodded. "Every place can be a home if there's respect." There was silence between them, not empty this time, but fragile and honest. Finally, David said, "We were wrong. Hannah and I, about everything." Martin sipped his tea, eyes softening. "You love her. That's good. But love doesn't mean forgetting who you are or where you came from." David nodded slowly. I remember now, a pause. Then Martin smiled faintly. Then go remember it with her. Make that house yours, truly yours, with love, not ownership. David exhaled shakily, tears brimming. Will you come home, Dad? Martin looked out the window where the rain had stopped and sunlight began to pierce through the clouds.